Welcome to our channel where we explore stories that teach English, inspire your heart, and guide you step by step toward your dreams. Today, I want to share a story very close to my heart, a story about courage, persistence, and the power of learning a new language. It is the story of a shy child who could barely speak a word of English, who sat silently in classrooms, afraid of making mistakes, and who dreamed of a life much bigger than his small town. A child who discovered that one small promise, one tiny step, could change everything. This story will take you on a journey from silence to confidence, from fear to courage, and finally to achieving a dream that seemed impossible. Becoming a doctor. Every word, every struggle, and every victory in this story will inspire you to keep learning and never give up. Let's begin this journey together and see how a little determination and a lot of courage can transform a life. Chapter 1. A Silent Child. When I was a child, my world felt very small. I lived in a crowded town filled with noise and people, yet inside me there was only silence. At school, I often sat at the back of the classroom, afraid that the teacher might call my name. The reason was simple. I could not speak English. English was like a mountain in front of me. Others climbed it easily, but for me it was too high. My classmates laughed when I tried to say even one word. Once, during an English lesson, the teacher asked me to read a short line from the book. My hands shook, my lips trembled, and the words came out broken. The whole class laughed, and my ears burned with shame. From that day, I decided it was safer to keep quiet. But silence is heavy. Every time I saw someone speaking English with confidence, I felt a pain inside. I wanted that power too. I wanted to raise my hand in class, to answer questions, to speak without fear. But all I had was silence. At home, I kept my dreams locked inside. My parents were busy with daily struggles. They only wished for me to pass my exams. Nobody knew the storm inside me, the battle between fear and desire. I dreamed of a bigger life, of becoming someone respected. But without English, even my dreams felt far away. One night, lying awake in my small room, I whispered to myself, "One day I will learn. One day I will speak." It was a small promise, but it was the first step on my long journey. Chapter 2. First Broken Words. The promise I made to myself kept burning inside me, even when the days at school felt long and heavy. One morning, the teacher asked a simple question in English. Nobody raised their hand. For a moment, I felt something inside push me forward. My heart beat fast, my palms were sweating, yet I slowly lifted my hand. The teacher looked surprised. "Yes. Do you want to try?" I stood up. My legs felt weak, but I opened my mouth. What came out was not smooth English, but broken pieces, half words, half silence. My tongue twisted. My classmates laughed again, but this time I did not sit down immediately. I forced myself to finish the sentence, even if it sounded wrong. It was not perfect, but it was different. For the first time, I had spoken without running away. After class, I walked home with mixed feelings. I was embarrassed, yet also strangely proud. My words were broken, but they were mine. That night, I wrote the sentence again and again in my notebook, correcting each mistake. I whispered it to myself until the words began to sound clearer. Days turned into weeks. Each time I tried to speak, I failed a little less. Some days were worse, some days better, but I kept moving forward. The mountain of English was still tall, but I had taken the first real step. I began to realize something important. Failure was not the end. It was practice. Every laugh from classmates, every wrong word, every mistake was a stone in the path. If I kept walking, the stones would not stop me. They would become part of my road. That night, I wrote one more promise in my notebook. I will not stop. No matter how many times I fail, I will not stop. Chapter 3. The Secret Notebook. Every hero has a weapon, and mine was not a sword, not a shield. It was a small, old notebook. I found it in a drawer at home. Its cover was torn and its pages were yellow, but to me it looked like treasure. I decided that this notebook would hold my English journey. At first, I wrote only single words: apple, book, friend, teacher. Each word looked like a little seed, but writing them was not enough. I wanted these seeds to grow, so under each word, I wrote a short sentence. It was never perfect, but it was mine. For example, apple. I eat an apple. Book. This is my book. Simple, yes. But when I read them out loud, I felt like I was building bricks for a house. Every night, when the world was quiet and everyone else was asleep, I opened my secret notebook. I whispered sentences into the darkness, practicing without fear of laughter. Sometimes my voice cracked. Sometimes my pronunciation was strange, but I kept going. The notebook became more than just paper and ink. It became my best friend. When I was sad, I wrote. When I felt brave, I wrote. Every new word was like a small victory. One evening, my father entered my room unexpectedly. I quickly closed the notebook, afraid he would laugh or tell me I was wasting time. But he only smiled and said, "Study hard, son. One day it will help you." He did not know the secret inside those pages, but his words gave me more strength. Weeks passed. My little notebook grew heavy with words and sentences. On the last page, I drew a big star and wrote, "One day I will speak English without fear." That secret notebook became my silent teacher. It taught me patience. It taught me discipline. And most of all, it taught me that improvement comes step by step. Nobody saw my progress. My classmates still thought I was the quiet boy at the back. But inside, something powerful was growing. I began to dream of a day when I would close the notebook, walk into the world, and speak with confidence. That dream kept me alive on my darkest days. Chapter 4. Small Victories. Learning English was not like lightning. It was like planting seeds and waiting for the rain. For weeks, my secret notebook was filling with words and sentences. But still, nobody knew about my practice. I was afraid to test myself in front of others. One morning, an opportunity came. My English teacher entered the classroom and greeted everyone. The room was noisy, children talking and laughing. But I remembered a simple line I had practiced many times in my notebook. "Good morning, teacher." I whispered it at first, too soft for anyone to hear. Then I took a breath, raised my head, and said it louder. "Good morning, teacher." For a moment, silence filled the room. My teacher looked at me with surprise, then smiled. "Good morning," she answered warmly. My classmates giggled, but this time I didn't care. My heart was beating fast, not from fear, but from excitement. That tiny sentence gave me more power than I had ever felt before. It was my first small victory. Encouraged, I began testing myself little by little. At a small shop, instead of pointing at bread, I said, "1 bread, please." The shopkeeper looked confused, but handed it to me. I walked home smiling all the way. At school, I began reading short English books. The first one was simple, full of pictures and easy lines. Still, reading it from beginning to end felt like climbing a mountain. I underlined every unknown word, then ran back to my notebook to add them. One day, while walking home, a neighbor asked me, "How are you?" Usually, I would just smile shyly, but this time the words slipped out almost naturally. "I am fine, thank you." The neighbor nodded and walked away, but I stood frozen on the road, realizing I had spoken English without fear. These victories were small, almost invisible to others, but to me they were gold. They proved something I had only hoped for. I was improving. Of course, not every day was bright. Sometimes I forgot words. Sometimes my pronunciation made people laugh. Once, I tried to answer a question in class and completely mixed the grammar. My classmates laughed so hard I felt my face burn. That night, I almost wanted to throw away my notebook. And then I remembered the bread shop, the greeting to my teacher, the smile of my neighbor. Each little success reminded me that failure was only a step on the same road. I promised myself again, I will not stop. And so, small victories began to light my journey like candles in a dark tunnel, guiding me toward a bigger dream. Chapter 5. A mentor appears. Every journey becomes easier when someone walks beside you. Until now, my notebook had been my only teacher. But life was about to send me a guide, someone who would change the way I looked at English forever. It happened on an ordinary afternoon. I was sitting alone in the school library, struggling with a small English storybook. The sentences felt like puzzles, and every page left me more confused. Frustrated, I closed the book and whispered, "I will never learn this language." At that moment, I heard a gentle voice. "Why are you giving up so quickly?" I looked up. It was Mr. Rahman, one of our senior teachers. He was known for being kind, but also strict. I quickly shook my head, embarrassed. "Sir, English is too hard for me." He sat down beside me and opened the book again. "No language is impossible. You just need the right keys to unlock the door." He pointed at a sentence and said, "Don't try to swallow the whole book. Start with one line. Understand it, repeat it, live with it, then move to the next." That day, he taught me one simple sentence. "The sun is bright." He made me read it slowly, then loudly, then with confidence. At first, I felt silly, but then something clicked. I understood not just the words, but the rhythm. From that day, Mr. Rahman became more than a teacher. He became my mentor. Every afternoon, I went to the library, and he gave me small lessons. He showed me tricks, writing new words on small cards, speaking to myself in the mirror, listening to English radio even if I didn't understand everything. You see, he said one day, language is not only in books, it is in your ears, your tongue, your heart. You must live with it every day. His words stayed with me. I began carrying English everywhere, whispering sentences while walking, describing objects around me in English, even dreaming in English sometimes. Of course, progress was still slow, but now I was not alone. When I made mistakes, Mr. Rahman corrected me gently. When I felt discouraged, he reminded me how far I had come. His belief in me became stronger than my own doubt. One afternoon, as I packed my bag, he placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "One day you will do something great with this language. Do not forget that." I walked home that day with my heart shining. For the first time, I truly believed that English was not a mountain too high. It was a road I could walk step by step with a guide by my side. Chapter 6. The Road of Struggle. Even with a mentor by my side, the journey was far from easy. Learning English felt like climbing a mountain that grew taller with every step. Every day brought new challenges, tricky grammar, long words, strange pronunciations, and the fear of speaking in front of others. There were mornings when I opened my notebook and stared at the words, feeling overwhelmed. I would try to read a sentence aloud, only to stumble over one word and hear my classmates laugh. Sometimes their laughter echoed in my mind for hours, making me question whether I was capable at all. Exams were even harder. I would spend nights memorizing vocabulary, writing essays, and practicing pronunciation. Yet, when the test came, I would freeze, forgetting simple words I had practiced hundreds of times. Every mistake felt like a heavy stone on my chest. But then, I remembered my notebook, my mentor, and the promises I had whispered to myself in the dark. I will not stop. I will keep going, no matter what. Those words became my shield against discouragement. Slowly, I began to see progress. I could speak a few sentences without fear. I could read short stories and understand most of the words. I even started answering questions in class quietly, then louder, and finally with confidence. Each small victory was like a drop of water on a thirsty plant, helping me grow. Yet the road was never smooth. Sometimes I would face days when nothing seemed right. I mispronounced words, forgot grammar rules, or struggled to understand a sentence. Each failure tested my patience. I wanted to give up, but I learned something important. Struggle was not the enemy, it was the teacher. I also realized that I was not alone in my struggle. Many students had their own challenges, and some were far better at English than I was. Instead of feeling jealous or defeated, I began observing them, learning their methods, and adapting them to my own practice. One evening, after months of struggle, I spoke a full sentence to my teacher without hesitation. I have been working hard, and I will keep improving. She looked at me with pride and said, "You are ready for the next step." That moment felt like climbing the first real peak on a long mountain trail. The road of struggle taught me patience, resilience, and determination. I understood that success was not about talent alone. It was about refusing to stop, even when the journey seemed impossible. Every stumble became a lesson, every failure a step forward. And deep inside, I knew that these struggles were shaping not just my English, but my entire life. Chapter 7. Opening Doors. After months of struggle and practice, I began to notice changes. English was no longer a mountain I feared. It had become a key that could open doors I had once thought were closed forever. The first door opened when I received my results from a regional English test. I had worked tirelessly, memorizing words, practicing sentences, and reading aloud every evening. When I saw my score, I could hardly believe it. High marks. Pride and relief filled me. That achievement was more than a number. It was proof that my efforts were not in vain. Soon after, opportunities started appearing everywhere. Teachers began asking me to read aloud in class. I no longer hesitated. My voice was clear, confident. I even helped classmates who struggled with English, sharing tips I had learned from my secret notebook and my mentor. Seeing others improve because of me gave a joy I had never felt before. English also began to open doors beyond school. When I applied for a scholarship, the interview was in English. Normally, I would have panicked, but this time I spoke naturally, expressing my thoughts clearly and calmly. The scholarship committee was impressed, and I was accepted. The moment felt like stepping into a new world, one where dreams were possible. Traveling to the city for scholarship classes was another opening. I met students from different towns, all with their own stories and struggles. Communicating with them in English allowed me to build friendships, learn new ideas, and feel like I truly belonged. For the first time, I realized that language was more than just words. It was connection, understanding, and freedom. Yet, I never forgot the hard days of struggle. Every door I opened reminded me of the silent child I once was, afraid to speak even a single sentence. Those memories pushed me to work harder, to seize every opportunity, and to never stop learning. By the end of that year, English had become a bridge that connected me to knowledge, confidence, and possibilities I had never imagined. Each door I opened was a step closer to my dream, to become a doctor and help people with not only my skills, but also my voice, my words, and my courage. Chapter 8. The White Coat Dream. Medical school was another mountain, taller than any I had climbed before. But this time, I had something I had never had as a child: confidence. English had become my tool, my friend, and my bridge to opportunities. With it, I could read textbooks, communicate with professors, and understand complex medical terms that once seemed impossible. The first day of medical college was overwhelming. Students around me spoke fluently, debated ideas, and seemed so confident. I felt a familiar fear creeping in, but then I remembered my mentor's words: step by step, live with the language, and it will live with you. I took a deep breath, opened my notebook one last time, and whispered sentences under my breath until I felt steady. Classes were hard: anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry demanded long hours of study. I stayed late in the library reading English texts and practicing pronunciation. I asked professors questions in English, sometimes fumbling, sometimes hesitating. Yet every question I asked made me stronger, more confident. One day, during my first practical session, I had to explain a procedure to my instructor. My hands were shaking, my voice quivered, but I spoke clearly. When I finished, my instructor nodded approvingly. It was a small moment, but it felt enormous. I realized that English had given me not only the ability to speak, but the courage to act, to participate, to belong. Outside the classroom, English opened doors to friendships and mentorships. I could communicate with senior students, exchange ideas, and participate in workshops that others could not attend. Each conversation built confidence, and slowly I felt myself transforming from a shy child into a capable young adult ready for the challenges of medicine. The dream that had once seemed distant, the white coat, the stethoscope, the ability to help people, was now within reach. I could imagine the day I would graduate, the day I would wear the white coat for the first time. Every struggle, every small victory, every sentence I had whispered in my secret notebook had led to this moment. By the end of the year, I could see the future clearly. I was no longer the silent child afraid of English. I was a medical student, a learner, and a dreamer with the tools and confidence to face anything. The white coat was no longer just a dream. It was becoming a reality, stitched together with persistence, courage, and the language that had once seemed impossible. Chapter 9. The Doctor Who Speaks. Graduation day arrived like a dream painted in bright colors. The auditorium was filled with proud families, excited students, and professors smiling with approval. I walked across the stage, my white coat freshly pressed, my heart pounding with a mix of pride, relief, and disbelief. As I held my certificate in my hands, I thought of the silent child I once was. The child who could not say a single word in English without trembling. The child who hid behind his notebook, whispering sentences alone in the dark. The child had grown step by step, failure by failure, and word by word. I remembered every small victory, the greeting to my teacher, the sentence at the shop, the first correct answer in class. I remembered my mentor who had guided me patiently and my countless nights of practice in the secret notebook. Every struggle, every failure, every moment of doubt had led me to this stage. But the journey was not over. Becoming a doctor was not just about wearing a white coat. It was about speaking with patients, understanding their fears, and giving them comfort. For the first time, I realized how vital English had been. It was not just a subject at school. It was a bridge that allowed me to connect, to care, and to heal. During my first days as a junior doctor, I spoke with patients from different backgrounds. I explained their treatments, answered questions, and calmed their worries. Each conversation reminded me how far I had come. The silent, shy child was now a voice for others, a voice that could bring hope, understanding, and reassurance. One evening, after a long day at the hospital, I sat quietly and thought, if I can achieve this, anyone can. Language, courage, and persistence are powerful tools. No matter how impossible something seems, the first step, however small, can change everything. As I looked at my reflection in a mirror, white coat shining under the soft light, I whispered a final promise. I will continue to learn, to grow, and to help. I will speak, and I will make a difference. From a silent child to a confident doctor, my journey had been long, difficult, and full of lessons. But now, I could finally say with pride, I learned English, I became a doctor, and my voice can change lives. And so the story ends, not with a final word, but with a beginning. The beginning of a life ready to heal, inspire, and speak boldly.